So you mentioned Drexel University, and when students go back, what's that looking like? So why don't we start there with the educational market? Uh,
Yeah.
Virtual schooling.
That's people are finding out, and institutions are finding out that can be done. Um, and I think that's going to have a huge impact. That already was beginning to be a trendsetter, if you will. But now major institutions, Harvard is teaching online right now to their students. How much is needed in person? And there's probably a component of it. I got to believe I don't teach any courses that are heavy, like lab oriented or hands on, if you will. I would think those probably need a little more in person activity. But a lot of your basic lecture stuff could probably get away without um, in person. So how does that impact buildings?
Yeah. It really has the opportunity to change the entire educational system moving forward. I mean, I think my son is 13 years old. He's in 7th grade. His classroom now is a computer in his bedroom.
Right.
Just what he needed, more reason to stay and hang out in his bedroom and not with his parents, of course. But, when, as a lot of states did, there was a short-term shutdown of in-person education. And then in our state, in Pennsylvania, they expanded it to the rest of the school year. And when I told him he wouldn't be going back to school, he actually said, "It's a miracle." So, he and his buddies, they live virtually anyway. When they hang out together in person, they're on their dang electronic devices, not talking to one another. And I can't tell you how many times he's been together with a friend and they wanted to go separate ways so they could both get online and play video games with each other. It's just so.
Don't you think they'd want to go to a movie theater, to a shopping mall, to a park?
Yeah, from my perspective, absolutely.
Sure.
But they were already this Generation Z or the iGen, whatever you want to call them, have already. You look at, millennials get sort of a bad rap for being so distant because of all the digital tools, but Gen Z is truly total digital natives. Kids today are in 2nd or 3rd grade holding iPhones in their hands. And so that type of digital relationship was already thriving. Now you throw in, there's at least a period of a few months out of their entire K through 12 career where they're learning virtually. Are we going to have a generation that really views college as something they should be doing online?
Interesting comment, especially if they're already going through that learning process online in high school, in grade school. It's going to be interesting how the whole industry evolves and reacts to this. I could see there's two things going on. One is the access to that information. I think there's a real socioeconomical issue going on with access to technology, and that's in large urban areas, somewhat impoverished areas, but also what I would call the rural poor. There's issues getting internet to the rural areas. So the access is still an issue, and that might drive a portion of it. The other issue is just colleges, at least higher education institutions in general, have been having a bit of an issue going forward. The student age population was declining. There was the beginning of some more online. There was more people taking for-profit type courses like the University of Phoenix and so forth. So what was occurring was there are more than a couple colleges that are actually closing up shop. And what's going to happen now? Is this going to accelerate that process? Are you going to have some smaller or less financially capable colleges actually closing their doors? Colleges are taking a large hit right now from refunding room and board to paying expenses to have the technology that they may not have had. I don't want to, it's kind of the extreme end of our discussion, but what happens when that occurs?
No, absolutely. And, to hit on one of your point about socioeconomic status of these students, I read a study not that long ago that said there's about 12 million K through 12 students in the United States without broadband access.
Yeah.
Right now with the virtual education, it's creating more of a gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Well, definitely. But no, I just look at that. Is that an opportunity for our industry? It's not the sexy side of the industry where we're building cool looking buildings, but to get that technology out into the far reaches of a rural area involves some design. It involves construction. It's not the sexy, glamorous stuff, but you need somebody to get that material out there, building those towers, running those fiber optic cables, whatever it might be. So there's potential opportunity for us as an industry.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the future college campus. So let's say more virtual learning happens. What happens to student housing?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest hit, if you will, is what happens with the residence halls. And it's interesting because we've been having a trend at a number of universities, both public and private, having third-party developers coming in and develop student residences, housing for the college students, sometimes with guarantees of residence in terms of numbers, sometimes without that. But a lot of these buildings are integrated into the college campuses. And if all of a sudden the college is still operating but is down 40% of their on-campus residents have gone away, what happens with these buildings that are owned by private entities on university land or sometimes attached to university buildings? I know most of them have a provision in there to convert to market rate housing, which is fine, but is that going to be a tough sell? Are you going to have these potentially empty buildings on a campus?
Yeah. And so you have those colleges and universities that looked at student housing as a revenue generator.
Right.
So what happens there? And then, like you said, you have the other colleges and universities that said it's non-core. We want to bring in these third parties to develop them. So there's really two different aspects to this.
Yep.
And I'll tell you another thing that just overall concerns me is if you look at as a group, as a stereotype, I guess, with the millennial generation, one thing that's continually hounded them has been underemployment. So they go to college, they take on massive amounts of college debt, and then they don't get the jobs that they sought to be able to pay off their student loans.
Yeah.
What does that teach the next generation about college?
I think that's already occurred. I think a lot of our generation are talking to our children in that generation about maybe you don't need to go to college.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with learning a trade or something else. You don't need that college education. It's already beginning to have that evolution, I think.